Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Desktop Central Training. Thank you very much for taking your valuable time and joining each training sessions that we have. I believe the entire training course adds value to your daily IT management solution. And once again, welcome back to Desktop Central Training. And before I proceed with my training today, I would like to understand if you're able to hear my voice and view the presentation. If so, please do confirm by commenting on the chat window below. Thank you very much for your confirmation. Well, let me introduce myself. My name is Santosh, and I'm the product specialist with ManageEngine. I'll be the trainer for you today. Let's quickly look at the training schedule that we had so far. We are on the week 5, and we'll be looking at configuration and some hidden tricks with Desktop Central. And in case if you have missed the previous training programs on patch management, software deployment, or any other modules, you can always view them on the link shown on the bottom of the screen. And in fact, even during this training session, in case you have any questions, you can always comment on the chat window. We have an expert panel who will be answering your questions real time. Once again, we're going to look at configurations and some hidden tricks with Desktop Central today. Now let's look at the agenda. We'll be looking at the configuration and the overview of how the configuration works, and we'll also be looking at some prerequisites like how you can install your agent and how you can manage them with Desktop Central. And we'll be looking at some USB device management, how we can do a configuration for that. And we'll also look at some scenarios and solutions which we come across in support. And also, we'll also quickly look at some questions that we frequently have. Desktop Central supports all 3 flavors of operating system: Windows, Mac, and Linux. Now let's look at the architecture of Desktop Central. Now Desktop Central is a client-server model application, and this is an on-premise solution. Now you can install the Desktop Central on your LAN or even on a DMZ. I presume everyone is aware what's a DMZ. If you host your server on a DMZ, you can have the agent and server communicate securely. Now, Desktop Central can manage local area network agent as well as wide area network clients. Now, when we are managing wide area network clients, we can group them into different remote offices, or we can call it a branch office. Different remote locations can be managed with Desktop Central. Now, when you're managing remote locations, we have a concept called a distribution server. What is a distribution server? Imagine you're managing over 100 machines in one of your branch office. And if you have a distribution server installed in one of the machines in your branch office, whenever you deploy a configuration or a software or a patch, the patches and the software will be replicated from the main server to the distribution server. And from the distribution server, it goes to the clients directly. Even though you have a distribution server, still the main server will be in charge of managing the agents. The data transfer will go through the distribution server. You can choose to have a distribution server or choose not to have a distribution server as well, meaning you can have direct connections from your branch offices as well. Now, can I manage roaming users, meaning users who will be on the travel or be connecting over the internet? Yes, we can manage mobile users over the internet. You can use a forwarding server or a proxy in order to contact the Desktop Central. In case you have a forwarding server for agents who are in the roaming zone, you can install it on a DMZ. Now, all the communication from your roaming users and your branch offices will go through the forwarding server to the Desktop Central server so that you don't have to expose your central server. When you have a forwarding server in between, even your remote offices can contact through the forwarding server. What is a forwarding server? A forwarding server is a secure gateway server which is placed in between your roaming users and the central server. Any communication between the roaming users and the central server will be routed through this forwarding server. What if all my agents are roaming users? Then you can host your desktop central server on an AWS, on an Azure cloud instance, where you will be able to manage all your roaming users and in fact LAN users as well. Now, when you go for an Azure or AWS setup, the advantage is that it is a cost-effective solution as you don't have to invest on hardware. Now, please keep in mind, Zoho Desktop Central ManageEngine will soon migrate to the cloud. You can expect the newsletters on that. We are in progress of having a cloud product for Desktop Central. Let's look at what are the components that are required for the Desktop Central setup. You will have to install the server, which is your main Desktop Central server, and you need agent to be installed on all the machines that you're trying to manage, so which is again an essential component. You need notification server. The notification server is again a service that will be installed along with your central server. We'll talk about this notification server in a while, which is again an essential component. Distribution server is optional. Like I mentioned earlier, you can choose to have distribution server for remote office or choose not to have. Forwarding server is again optional. In case if you need secure communication, you can go for a forwarding server. Then the failover server, in case if you would like to go for a failover server, then you can have the license separately. And language block is again an optional component. Let's look at the ports that are used by the Desktop Central. Now, Desktop Central server uses 8020 for HTTP communication and 8383 for HTTPS communication. This is by default. And the notification server component will use 8027, which is a TCP. And the distribution server, as you can see on the bottom, will use 8021 and 8384 for HTTPS communication. And in fact, there are other ports as well, as you see for remote control, file transfer, and video and voice chat. They have their respective ports, like video and voice chat will use 8443 UDP port, and remote control will use 8444 and 8443 in HTTPS. There are other ports as well that are used by the Desktop Central. In case if you would like to know a detailed ports which are used by Desktop Central, you can always view them on the link that is shown on the bottom of the screen. You can go to that link and you will have a detailed of ports that are used by the Desktop Central. Now we have a 90 minutes refresh policy. What is this 90 minutes refresh policy? Every agent talks to the server once in 90 minutes. Imagine you have 90 machines or even 900 or 9,000. This 90 minutes will be divided equally among them, and each agent will be given a specific time to contact the server. Now this is to avoid bandwidth issues and also network performance or server performance. So this 90 minutes refresh cycle is standard for all the environments. When it comes for a bigger environment, this 90 minutes refresh policy is crucial. Now, why do we go for configuration? Let's get into the training for today. Imagine you're an administrator who has daily activities like changing wallpaper, running scripts on your end users, mapping printers or drives. You will definitely need a centralized solution which can be done through Desktop Central. And also, wherever there is a threat or if you have latest issues, then you need to protect and remediate your network from data breaches and vulnerabilities. So you would definitely need Desktop Central and you can use the configurations. Now for today's training, this is my company's infrastructure. I consider myself as the administrator here, and I have Desktop Central installed in my head office, and I do manage agents on my local area network. I do have two other remote offices, one at New York, the other one is San Francisco, and I do have roaming users, meaning users who will be connecting through the internet, or they'll be during the travel, they'll be connecting directly to the server. So this is my setup. Let's see how I go about installing the agents. Remember, we spoke about agent server model. So we will have to install the agent application in all the machines. Let's go to the product and see how we can install the agent and have this infrastructure set up. Now this is the Desktop Central product. This is a web server, and you will be able to access it once you install it on any operating system, supported operating system, recommended a server operating system. You can open the web browser in your network. So once you install the Desktop Central, the first step that you go is to install the agents. I go to Admin. I click on Scope of Management. Now, this is the place that you will see the summary where it will give you the total number of machines that you're managing with Desktop Central. It will have the details of how many installations are there and a few other information as well, like a dashboard. When we click on Computer tab, this is the place which shows you all the machines that has the agent or that are added to the console, does not have the agent installed, different status. All these will be available on the Computers tab. Now remember, Desktop Central supports both domain as well as workgroup kind of setup. To install the agent, we can do a remote installation from the Desktop Central console, which is very important. How do I go for a remote installation? I click on Add Computer. As you can see, we have added several work groups and several domains as well. I'm just giving you a sample of what details that you would be required to add when you're adding a AD kind of setup. As you can see, you can enter the credentials and the domain name, the domain controller name. In case if you're using it for the first time, just for the first time users, if you want to know the details of domain controllers and AD domain name, you can always contact the network administrator, or from any machines which is connected to the domain, you can run a command prompt and run set space u. You will have the details of the domain controller, so which will be useful for you. You must have an administrator credentials in order to go for an agent installation. The credential that you give here when you're adding a domain will be used to push the agent remotely from the central server machine to the end user machine. So the credentials should have administrator privileges in order to perform installation. You can create a service accounts on your AD in order to do the same. And the same goes for the workgroup kind of setup as well. In case you have a common workgroup and a common username and password, you can use that to install the agent. So once you add the domain, you can go for a network discovery, seeing what are the machines that are there on your domain. Now I will be able to browse through each OUs and select the computers, or if I would like to add the computers by name, I can add that as well with commas in between. Or if I want to select it from a list, I can go by the list view and select it from the list as well. So once I select the machines that I would like to add, it will be displayed here on the domain place. As you can see, the computers will be added. Now, in order to install them remotely, I can select this option as you see in the bottom, install agent immediately. And when I click on done, what happens is that it triggers agent installation immediately to all the machines that I have selected here. Now, one thing that you would have to keep in mind is that the remote installation would work if you are able to reach the admin $ folder of the client machine from the server installed machine. Just to give you an example, if my remote machine is DC Webinar-Lab, I would try to access the admin $ folder, and you should be able to access this folder from your server installed machine. Only then you will be able to do a remote installation. So in case if you are receiving an error like network path not found when you try agent installation, the first thing that you can check is to see if you're able to reach the admin $ folder. So once the agent installation is triggered, it will go ahead and trigger agent installation in batches. 10 machines per batch and then continues to install on all the machines that you have selected. This is remote installation. In case if I want to download the agent and install them manually, I can do that as well. On the right-hand side, far right, you can see download agent. You can download the agent, put it on a share, and have it installed on the machines. It will automatically report back to the server. Can I use a GPO script? Yes, you can. You can use a GPO script in order to achieve the same as well. If you scroll down to the bottom, you will have the link of how you can do, how to do doc will be here on the bottom. If you go for the link, it will tell you the details of how you can create a startup script and how you can integrate it with the GPO and push the agents. So once the agents are installed, it will automatically report back to the server. This is manual installation. Can I do automatic installation, meaning can the server install agent automatically for new machines? Yes, we can do that as well. We have the option called the SOM policy here. Here I can configure my server and say these domain or these OUs, whenever there are new machines added to this OU, go ahead and trigger agent installation automatically. Or just notify me, I will then trigger agent installation. So I have two options here which I can choose, either just to notify me when new machines are added, or I can simply say install the agent and then notify me. It will notify you on the email address that you configure here. And at a specific time, it queries your Active Directory. As soon as you save the settings, for example, here we have given 11 a.m. At 11 a.m., it queries your Active Directory. And if there are any new machines, it triggers the installation automatically. If you have chosen just notify me, you can view the list of computers here on the view sync information. Later on, you can decide on which are the computers that you want to install the agent, which are the computers that you want to exclude from your domain. And you can see if you have excluded some machines, you can view the excluded list, or if it's added and still not installed, you can view it from the added list here. This will sync every day once. In case if you would like to sync anytime that you would like to add agent, you can go for sync all option. So immediately it will sync with your Active Directory and gives you the list of new machines added and trigger agent installation automatically based on how you have configured. This is automatic agent installation. Now, once the agents are installed, you will be able to manage them. Now consider my architecture. I have local area network agents and also remote offices, which is my New York and San Francisco. How do I create remote offices and install agent there? I can go to the option says remote offices. Here, I will be able to create a specific remote office. I can name the remote office here. If I'm going to create it for New York, I name it as New York here. And you can give the server IP address or the FQDN, meaning if they are connecting over an internet, or remember the forwarding server, this is the place that I will have to specify my forwarding server IP or the public IP address that the remote office agents will use in order to contact my central server. So I will have to put that IP address over here. Now here, you have two options, like I mentioned. You can either have a distribution server in your location, or you can simply have a direct connection for all the agents. If you are going for a distribution server, you need to enter the details of the machine in which your distribution server will be installed. Now, the only prerequisite will be that you should have a dedicated machine with a static IP address so that the agent will have constant communication. If your IP address changes for the distribution server, or if your agents are not able to reach the distribution server, you may see the agent as live, but the configurations or the patches will always stay in it to apply. You will not see the patches pushing out. So it is always recommended to have a static IP address and a dedicated computer just for the distribution server. It should be live always. So you can give the domain name or the NetBIOS name, the IP address of the distribution server, and the ports which the agent should use to contact the distribution server, and the replication policy. What is a replication policy? Now, whenever I deploy a patch from my main server to a remote office, Remember, the patch goes to the distribution server first and then goes to the agents. So this replication policy determines of the data replicated between my central server and your distribution server. For example, if I have a bandwidth related concern, I cannot have unlimited bandwidth between my central server and my remote location. I cannot use all the bandwidth. So you can configure how much bandwidth that you would like to use here. And the time interval, how often do you want the distribution server to check in with the central server? Every 2 minutes? Or if you think I cannot allow that, every 12 hours or every 24 hours once, meaning every 1 day, you can configure that replication interval here. And in fact, if you think on the weekdays you cannot have the replication take place, you can configure it over the weekend. The system gives you a lot of customization options that you can choose, even the time window between which you want to have the replication take place. So once you create the replication policy, you can select that policy from the list here. Now, each remote office can have a different replication policy. Once I choose the replication policy, in case if you need a proxy tunnel in order to have the connection, you can use this option, or otherwise you can leave it blank. And even for remote controls, there is a functionality in Desktop Central called Tools, in which you will be taking remote control of the machines. Please do register for the future trainings, you will understand it better. So in order to reduce the compression rate or the bandwidth concerns, you can throttle it here on the remote control settings. So for the agents that are on my remote offices, I can add it from this add computer. This will browse all my domains. In case if I have a domain setup, I can again browse through the domain, add the machines to this remote office. So the remote office agents will be installed through this distribution server machine, and you'll have the machines installed for that remote office. So once you click on install agent automatically, WAN agent, the installation for those machines that I've added here will start agent installation. So once I add my remote offices, I am good to go with my infrastructure. Looking at my infrastructure, I've created a New York office with a distribution server and a San Francisco office without a distribution server. I can create the same remote office choosing direct connection. In case if you want to create a roaming user again as a remote office, you can simply configure them. Since you want to group them as roaming users, you can name a remote office, create one, and say roaming user. And here you can give the public IP address, again, the same as how we discussed for New York. You can give the forwarding server details as well. Once you give the forwarding server details, the agents that are installed with this remote office or this roaming user remote office will contact the forwarding server from over the internet. And that's how we complete the installation process for the company's infrastructure, which I'm administering. Let's quickly look at the recap of how we did installation. We did a manual installation, uploaded any machine, it will directly report back to the server. And also using web console, you can remotely install the agent from here, from the computers tab. And we also looked at how we can install it through the GPO. So those are the three methods in which you can install the agent. One other method is also available in case if you are going for an image and if you'd like to image the agent along with the installation, you can choose that. The instructions will be available when you click on deploying an agent with OS. You can view this tab in order to know how you can image a machine with the agent installed and what are the prerequisites. Once I'm done with the infrastructure, let's look at how I can proceed with the tasks that are given to me. The first task would be configuring a printer to a new user. Let's go to the product. Now, configurations. On the far left top, you have an option called the configurations. Now, what is a configuration? When I go here and select, I can deploy configurations for Windows, Mac, and Linux. I'm choosing Windows here. A configuration is a specific task that can be pushed out from a server to a specific user or even for a computer. Now you can push tasks like browser, meaning adding trusted sites or restricted sites or favorites. I can push custom scripts. I can create scripts and add the scripts over here and push it to the end user or the computer. Even a PowerShell script is possible. Tasks are created as configurations. I can create one for user as well as for computer. Now, what's a user configuration or a computer configuration? When you go for a user configuration, it will deploy for that specific user. You can select the domain and you can select when you choose a computer configuration, it will be installed for that specific machine. Now, our first job is to configure an IP printer. Let's go to the Windows configuration. Let's go to the IP configuration. Our job is to configure for a user. I click on user configuration here, and I will be able to create a configuration name. I can add as well as delete a configuration. In fact, if you have added an IP, if you want to delete it, you can use the delete option. In our case, we are going to add the IP printer. You give the IP address or the DNS name. You can give the display name here or the protocol, whether it's RAW or LPR, the port number for that printer. And if it's already existing, you can go and overwrite it. If you want to set it as a default printer, you'll be able to do that as well. For the driver, we have options to use a shared network printer, or you can add the package here. If you have a driver that should be installed for the installation, you can add the package here if it's an exe, or if it has multiple files, you can zip it and add it over here. You can add the driver and then proceed with the deployment so that it will install the driver for the specific printer. Or you can use pre-installed drivers as well. In case if you are aware of the printer name, pre-installed driver name, you can go ahead and put it over here so that it will install that driver in order to install the printer. Now, the target selection, you have a lot of customization. You can select an entire domain, or you can select an entire remote office, multiple remote offices. You can filter it, the small funnel symbol, if you click here, you can filter it based on a specific computer or a group, say group here, the direct username, you can browse and select it. Or if you want to use custom groups, meaning you can group the machines together on the Desktop Central server and form custom groups. I'll be talking about that in a while. Or if you want to deploy to an IP range, all these are possible on the target. In case if you want to exclude few machines from a specific group, you can add those machines here so that those machines will be excluded. You can add multiple targets as well. Now, once I choose my target, here Mark is my employee, so I'm going to deploy the configuration to him. Now, I can choose whether I want to apply this configuration at every logon or not. So certain type of configurations may require at every login, so you can check this option if this is applicable for you. And the retry option. What if my configuration fails, or what if my machines are not reachable? I can configure the retry option. Here, I have selected 2 times. I'm telling my machine to try it once at my refresh interval and once at my log on. So whenever there is a refresh, meaning this 90-minute cycle, it will go ahead and try to apply the configuration. Or if there is any log on by the user, whenever he logs in, he'll go ahead and try that. Now, enable notification in case if you would like to receive the email about what happened to the configuration, how many users were installed, or if it's a computer configuration, how many machines were installed. If you would like to get a detailed report, you can get that by giving your email address here. So when you give it for a user, it will get applied wherever he logs in. So when I click deploy here, it will get applied during the 90-minute cycle whenever the agent talks to the server. If it's going for a computer configuration, I can go immediately. Since this is a user, it will have to check when the user is logged in, and it will apply the configurations there during the 90-minute cycle. And if I want to save this configuration for a later purpose, If I want to do the same configuration for some other user, I can save it as a draft or even as a template and use it later on. So that's the first task given to me, deploying an IP printer to a specific user, which I have achieved. Moving on to the second task, configure a printer for a specific group of computers. Now we tried it for a user. How do I create groups and deploy it for a group of machines? Now in the product, you can go to admin, you can click on custom groups. Here you will be able to create different groups and group the machines together or users together as well. So I can create three types of groups. One is a static, and the other one is a static unique. The other one is a dynamic. When I say static, a system can be part of multiple static groups, meaning you can have different groups have the same machines in each group. When it's a static unique, one machine part of one static unique cannot be a part of another static unique group. That's the difference. And dynamic will be based on criteria. For example, if I have to group them based on the operating system, then I can use a dynamic group and create, say, group all the machines which fall under Windows Server 2003. It will group those machines. So I can create different groups. And for our deployment, I will be creating a group and I will be deploying the printers to that specific manager group. So I can choose that from here. I can deploy it for a specific groups or I can deploy it for a specific computers as well. I can choose it from here for my manager's custom group that I've created, and I will be able to deploy it. Remember I talked about deploy and deploy immediately. When you click deploy, it will be during the 90-minute cycle, meaning whenever the agent contacts the server, I will hand over the configuration and it will be processed. Or if I want to go immediately, I go for deploy immediately option, irrespective of the 90-minute cycle. Since this is a computer configuration, the configuration will be initiated immediately. And that's how I will be able to deploy a printer to a specific group of machines. Now, in case you have any questions with what we are seeing or with the configurations, please feel free to comment on the chat. We have an expert panel who will be answering you instantly. So that's the second task that we complete. Let's go to the next task. How do you do baseline configurations as a collection? Now, when I say baseline configuration, imagine I want to do a collection of tasks that is baseline for new users or for upcoming users. Now, how do I do that? I go to configuration. I click on the collection. When I say collection, I can create user collection as well as a computer collection. So I can choose different configurations together and baseline it. For example, if I want to do a display settings, or if I want to do a secure USB, or add a printer, or if I would like to run a custom script, I can group them together for a baselining and I can create a configuration. Now for my baseline of new users, I have selected a browser, meaning I will be adding a browser settings. I'll be adding a browser settings there. Let me try to do the configuration again. Yes. So I can choose different browsers. I can choose a Wi-Fi profile, or I can add a drive mapping. So each configurations will be deployed here. For example, drive mapping. I have added a specific drive name. I have chosen from where it has to choose the drives label as well, and if it has to override the existing drive or not, those details. In fact, if I want to remove, I add that as well. If you want to add a Wi-Fi profile, I create a profile, meaning it will connect automatically whenever you add a Wi-Fi profile. If you want to enable the wireless adapters, you can do that as well. Even on the display configuration, if you want to add a specific wallpaper, you can add it using this, and even the browser configuration. If I want to add a trusted site or a restricted site or a proxy, as you can see, I will be able to add those details here and create a configuration. So once I create this collection, I'll be able to select the target. Here, I will be deploying to my entire domain. So what happens is when I deploy to an entire domain, whenever there is a new machine added to my domain, will also get this configuration, meaning whenever the agent is installed, as soon as it joins the domain, it knows that it has to deploy this configuration or this collection, and it will deploy to all the machines. And that's how I, as an administrator, will be able to baseline some collection of configurations. And once I deploy the configuration, I can view the status here. When I click on configurations on the top, I can view the different configurations that I have created. And if I want to view them by status, I can filter it. Or if I don't want any configuration, I can move it to trash as well. In fact, if I want to redeploy it, I can simply click on action, modify the same configuration, or suspend it. Now, suspend will work only if the configuration is yet to go to the machine. For example, during this 90 minutes, if the machine is yet to take the configuration, if you suspend it, it should work. If the machine has taken the configuration already, even if you suspend it, it would not work because the configuration is already processed on the client end. How do I revert it? You can simply do an add or delete. If you have done an add configuration, go for a delete configuration, deploy another one to the same machine to remediate it. Let's look at the next task that is given for us. Configuration templates. As an administrator, do I have templates to secure my desktops or various other activities? Let's go to the configuration. Now I click on configuration and I click on templates. Now I have two options here, which is predefined templates as well as user-defined templates. Remember on the configurations when we deployed, I have the option here to save as a new configuration, or even I can save it as a template. So those templates will be available here on the user-defined templates that I have created. It can be a patch, or it can be a configuration, or it can be a patch or a software. Those, if I want to use it as a template again, I can use it. Now coming to predefined templates. How do I use these templates that are available? For example, we have template to auto lock the PCs that are idle. I can use this to create a configuration to lock my computers if it's more than 60 seconds. If I would like to modify, by default 60 is the value. I can modify that. If I would like to set the time to some other value, I can do that. So this is predefined. If I want to deploy this template immediately, I can use this and it can make changes on my registry. Now all these changes will be done on the registry, so that to undo it, you can deploy a delete or a disable option. Again, you can choose the target the similar way how we chose for other configuration. And if you want to apply this at every logon, for example, even if the user changes, the next logon, it will again apply the registry changes so that it will keep applying the changes at every logon. So once I deploy this to a user, this configuration from the template will be deployed. And you have other templates as well, meaning changing the date time format or changing a power screen or cleaning up a recycle bin, which will be handy for any administrator. If you would like to clean up a recycle bin, you don't have to take a remote. You can deploy a configuration from here as a part of template, which will clear your recycle bin. So you have other templates as well. Apart from these few templates, deleting a local admin account. This is one of the pain areas for any administrator. If they have a local administrator, how do I go about delete it or modify it? So to enhance the security, you can delete the local admin account using the configuration here. You can modify it, or if you want to change the password, you can do that, or even deleting is also possible. So there are other templates, like I mentioned, that are available, like disabling the automatic updates for Windows or automatic updates for a specific application like our Acrobat Reader. it will be available on this list that you can choose and readily deploy to your machines. Now let's look at USB device management. Now this is one configuration that we use in order to secure our USBs. The objective is to block all the USBs in my enterprise and allow only managers to use the USB devices, and that too, just the encrypted devices should be used by the managers. So in order to do that, we can use configurations. Let's go to the product. I go to configurations here, and I click on configuration, go for Windows, and I see an option to secure my USB. Now I can deploy it to a specific user or a group of users, or even for a specific computers. So I'm going for a computer configuration. Here, I can block the devices. You have different types of USB devices, and you can choose to block the ones that you would require or leave the other ones without a change. For example, if you want to block the disk drives, which includes the USBs, external hard drives, you can use this configuration in order to block them. If you would like to block portable devices, which will be digital cameras or mobile phones or portable media players, you can choose them. Or if you would like to block all the Apple devices, you can do that as well. So you can choose the device type that you would like to block. Here we're going to block all the USB disk drives. So I can go ahead and say block this. So when I select this, all the devices will be blocked. In case if I want to exclude few devices alone, I can click on this exclude device option, where I can go ahead and fill in my device instance ID, which will be found on the control panel or the device manager. If you want to exclude all the devices from that vendor, you can do that. Or if you want to exclude all the encrypted devices alone, you can do that as well. So first, I will be deploying a block configuration for everyone and for my entire remote office and the domain. However, when I deploy it for a specific group of machines or everyone, I will be excluding my managers group alone, so that this block configuration will be for everyone except for my managers group. So wherever my manager computers is there, they will be able to use the USBs. So once I deploy this configuration, deploy immediately, whichever I choose, I can choose apply at every startup, so that this configuration will be active every time the machine starts up. Once I deploy it, the managers will be able to use. Now I can deploy another configuration where I can say block all the devices and exclude all the encrypted devices alone. So if I go ahead and add that, and right now, the second configuration, I'll be deploying it only to my managers group. Now, managers USBs will be blocked. However, if it's an encrypted device, they will be able to use that. So first configuration that I deploy will go to everyone, which will not exclude any devices. I say block except for the managers group. The second configuration I deploy say block all the devices except for the encrypted devices, just for my manager group. So that's how we will be able to do a secure USB device management with the configuration. Let's quickly look at some scenarios and solutions for the configuration. Scenario number one, we completely rely on Desktop Central for system management, and we cannot afford downtime. What should we do? In this case, you can go for the failover server concept. In case if you have a failover server installed, it will take care of the server activities during the downtime. You can have a primary server and a secondary server installed in two different locations, and you can have them in sync. You can keep the database separately. Right now, for the failover server, we support MS SQL database, so you have to use MS SQL database for the failover server in case you are going to have one. So when one server fails, the other one takes care of the system. Scenario 2, we have thousands of configurations in the Desktop Central and it has become unmanageable. Is there a way out? Now let's go to the product. On the configuration page, as you can see, you can view all the configurations that we have deployed so far. You can even filter them by user or even by computer configurations, the configuration types that you have deployed so far. In case if you would like to delete a specific configurations, you can do that. Or if you would like to, check for a configuration and undo it, you can deploy another configurations from here. Apart from that, you have another option here called configuration reports. If I want to find out what are the configurations that I have deployed for a specific computers, when you have a grown-up company, you may not have a list of configurations that you have actually deployed, which can be active at the moment. So you can go ahead and view that report saying computer configurations by computer, and you can see per computer how many configurations were deployed, what was the last configuration that was applied, when was it applied. So you can click on that configuration details. It will give you the details of what all configurations that were deployed so far, and so that you can check and revert the ones that you don't want. In case if you want to delete the configurations which are inactive, you can always come to the configuration tab here, select the configurations and move it to the trash. And later on, you can delete it from the trash as well. Scenario 3, some of our computers go unmanaged quite often. Is there a way to fix it? Now, in order to have this, mostly a machine may go unmanaged, probably because they have stopped the agent service or if they have uninstalled the agent application from the machine completely. So in order to stop that, you have an option here on the admin. You can click on the agent settings and you have this option, restrict user from uninstalling the agent from the control panel. So if you have this enabled green mark, then they will not be able to uninstall the agent from control panel. Even if they try to, it will just reconfigure and reinstall correctly. It will not uninstall the agent at all. You can restrict the users from stopping the Desktop Central service as well, so that whenever they try to stop the Desktop Central service, they will not be allowed to do it. So by this way, you will always have the agent reporting live to the central server. Scenario 4. It is painful to redeploy all configurations each time we hire a new employee or add a machine to our network. Is there a way out? Yes. When you deploy a configuration, earlier, like I mentioned, when you're deploying it for a specific domain rather than a specific user, in case if you are deploying for an entire domain or for a specific groups on your OU, the same configuration printer, I'm taking it as an example. If I'm going to deploy it for a groups that are part of my Active Directory already, I can choose that from the list here. It will browse through your Active Directory and it will give me the details of what are the groups that are available. So once I deploy this, whenever a new machine added to this OU, this configuration will get applied. Can I choose to opt out of it? That's possible as well. You can go to the configuration here and click on configuration settings. Now here, I have the option to configure it. Whenever a new machine is added to the OU or the group, do you want to apply the configuration at the system startup? If you check this at every system startup, or if it's a user configuration when he logs in, it automatically applies the existing configurations. If you uncheck it, it would not. So every 6 hours, it will query your directory and see if there are any new machines, and it will start deploying the configurations. I want Desktop Central to use the available system resources effectively for improved performance. What should I do? Well, in order to optimize the Desktop Central server, you can click on Admin, click on DB optimization here. Here, you can decide on the memory consumption, how many percentage you want the system to use. This will be handy, especially when you have multiple applications or multiple management products installed in one server. We do support integration. So in order to manage it better, system resources, you can use this DB optimization option in order to manage the system utilization. Scenario 6. These business data breaches and cyber attacks are fearsome. Can Desktop Central configuration be of some help? Yes, with Desktop Central configurations, whenever there are a threat or an issue that comes up, we help our users by giving scripts immediately in order to remediate or fix them temporarily. For example, we have done that during our SMB1 ports, which is your ransomware outburst. So we created a script which immediately blocks all the SMB1 ports. All you have to do is just click on the action and go for add it as a computer configuration or a user configuration, and then deploy the script directly to all the machines so that it blocks all the SMB1. So similar to the scripts that you saw here, we have other scripts as well. We did a script when there was meltdown specter problem as well, where the script will check for the AV compatibility for the users to understand whether their AV is set to handle the problem. So similar way, whenever there is an outburst, we will always update our scripts. The repository has all the scripts. You can add a script to your repository and deploy it. The templates will be ours, whichever that we have added so far will be available. In fact, there are more than 180 scripts available. We keep updating it. Apart from the configuration that you can deploy here, we do update scripts for specific tasks that are not part of your configurations. You can deploy them. We have it for Windows, Mac, and Linux. When I say the configuration is applicable for Windows, Mac, and Linux. For Mac, we have custom scripts. We can do web clips. We can do a gatekeeper configurations. Or if you want to install a specific software for the Mac machine, we have that as well. So you have for Mac machines, in case if you have a script that you want to run on the Mac, you can use the custom script that's a part of Mac here. Same goes for the Linux as well. You can install a patch, software, or even run a script on a Linux machine. So if you would like to view what are the available scripts that I can deploy, it may not be a part of a configuration here, but it will be part of a script repository and the templates that you can always choose. In fact, if you don't find a specific script, you can always get in touch with the support who will be helpful in finding you a script for a specific operation. I need to keep a track on asset data even when I'm away from my desk. Is this possible? Well, in order to achieve this, we have created mobile application for the Desktop Central. In case if you would like to monitor it using the mobile phones, you can do that as well. You can go to the admin. On the left-hand side, you have mobile app by which you can download the application and run it on your mobile platform. It should look similar to the screenshots that we have here. You will be able to manage them. You will be able to see the summary, the patch deployment process, how many are missing. Those details will also be available. The only requirement is that the server should be reachable from your mobile phones. Scenario 8. I want to restrict a technician to only access asset data. How can I do this? Here at the Desktop Central, we do have user-based administration as well. I can go admin, click on user administration, where I will be able to create different users and assign specific roles for them. Coming to the question, if I want a user to choose only asset data, I can create a role for him, or I can use one of the predefined roles that we have already for the asset management module. So if I create a user and assign that specific role, IT asset manager, he will have access only to asset management or the inventory or any other modules that you select for here. And if I even want to have them manage only a specific group, or if I assign a technician for one of my office, I can say for New York alone, I assign a technician. For San Francisco, I assign another technician. I can choose those remote office so that he'll be able to view only those machines and he'll be able to manage only those machines under that remote office. I can create rules as well. For example, I can add a role. If that's If the roles that are defined there are not part of your requirement, then you can create a role of your own where you can give access to specific modules and have them added to the technician. When I say technician, you can add a local technician as well as an Active Directory authentication. In case if you have added the domain already, you can choose that domain and add the username from the domain and give his password. You will be able to log in with the Active Directory credentials. And whatever passwords that we store is all encrypted and it will be stored under Credentials Manager. You can click on Admin and you can click on Credentials Manager. So whichever password it tries to access your Active Directory or any other deployment for that matter will be stored here on the Credentials Manager. You don't have to worry about it. This is encrypted data. Scenario 9, make sure your users recognize the application. Yes, we can do that as well. On the admin, we have the option to rebrand the Desktop Central icons and what it displays. If we want the user to understand that it's your application that they can trust and use, you can rebrand them. In fact, the agent icon that will be displayed on the desktop or on the self-service portal, you can change this icon here, or on the web server, the one that you see here, ManageEngine Desktop Central 10, if you would like to modify it and put your own company's logo there, you can do that here. This is a classic examples of how you can do it. As you can see, we just uploaded a specific logo here, and it will be displayed on the desktop. Instead of ManageEngine Desktop Central, you will have this icon there. Let's look at some frequently asked questions. Now, does Desktop Central allow you to block USB devices for a particular IP range? Yes, we do have options for that. When we talked about the deployment of the printer, we have the groups, we have the IP address. In fact, if you would like to go for an IP address range, you can use this to deploy to a specific range as well. Can website security certificate deployed to the workstation to multiple browsers? Yes, it's possible. You can use the configuration here. We have special configuration to install certificate distribution. In case if you're not seeing this, these are available on the latest builds. So you can upgrade, you will find that one. You can deploy it to a computer or even for the users. You can install certificate. Some keyboards and monitors have embedded USB ports. Will those ports be blocked despite of having the keyboard and mouse options excluded from the block? Well, when we are selecting the secure USB option, we take the information from the device manager. Even if they are using it as a part of a monitor or from part of a hub, they will be termed as an individual devices. You can get their instances ID and block them, or if you deploy a block configuration, it will be blocked. In case if you're not able to find a device instance ID, you can always view it on the device manager or even on the inventory for specific computers as well. Can the 90-minute refresh policy be changed? The 90 minutes refresh policy is designed to optimize the bandwidth or to reduce network performance issues. So we will not be able to modify this because when it goes for a bigger network, 90 minutes refresh policy is a key for optimum server performance. So the 90 minutes policy cannot be changed. However, we spoke a lot about deploy immediately and deploying a configuration right away to the computer. Those are possible in case if you want to do on-demand operations. We talked about the notification server component that is responsible for your immediate deployments. When does a configuration get deleted? And is it based on the status of the configurations? Well, configurations once deployed will stay there. Like I mentioned, this is a task that we specify. And once we push the configuration, it will make changes to the machine and it will be on the executed mode. In fact, if you want to delete it, you can delete the configurations from here. Or if you want to remove the configurations, some configurations may have automatically apply at system startup. So if you want to do automatic cleanup, you can go to the configuration settings here. You have the option that says move configurations to trash if they are not used for more than 30 days. So I deployed a configuration, and in a bigger network, I might have deployed more than 20 or 30 configurations every week. So in order to move to trash automatically, you can set this configuration up so that the system by itself will clean the configurations that you have deployed. How GDPR compliant is Desktop Central? Now, we have a team exclusively working on GDPR, and we have come up with a feature where the admin or the respective user will be given an option to mask any PII, which is personal identifiable information. So it will be able to mask those personality identifiable information while using the export button or also in the scheduled reports. In the coming builds, you will see this privacy settings included, which will make your Desktop Central compliant with the GDPR. As you can see, you can choose to enable or disable those options, privacy consents, data protections. So we are working on a bunch of privacy consents as well. In accordance with the GDPR Article 33 and 34, Desktop Central does not retain any personal contact information of the user who is removed from the Desktop Central, except for the username, because it is required for the audit or for the legal purposes. Question 7, if you configure a set of restricted sites in the collection wizard, but don't select a web browser, does the restriction apply to the default web browser or all the browsers? It will get applied to your default web browser that you have selected on the machine. Question 8, how to check the security level of my Desktop Central server? Going to the product, you can click on admin. You can click on the security settings here. Here, it will display the security health of your Desktop Central server. For example, if you have enabled HTTPS communication, or if you are using a third-party certificate, if you have enabled the HTTPS, it will use the default certificate that's provided by us. In case if you want to use the third-party certificate, you can do that. You have articles in order to help you out how to obtain this SSL certificate. And if you have enabled two-factor authentication, which is again a part of the compliance, it will also tell you if you have set a complex password or not, and restricting the users from uninstalling the agent. All these security values, based on that, it gives you a percentage of security that is there in the Desktop Central server. So depending on the choices that you have, you can make changes and make Desktop Central more secure. Question 9, is there a way to optimize the power consumption levels in my network computers? Yes, that's one of the configurations that we have. We can deploy power management configurations using the Windows options here. You can do power management for a specific user or specific computers as well. You will have details of changing the power scheme or deleting a power scheme, what you want to do when you push the power button. Those options are also there. You can click on the advanced settings to view them. So you can deploy this configuration to your end user. It comes for both computer and the user profile. You can deploy it based on how you want to do it, whether you want to enable the hibernation support or not. Question 10, what happens to the configuration if any of the target computers are down? So remember, when we deploy this configuration, I go for trying a retry option here. I can configure it. I can say, try at the system logon, meaning if my system is down, which means I failed the configuration, but when it comes up, I say, try the configuration. So whenever it comes back up, I'll try that specific configuration. Or I say, probably due to some network error, I may not be able to apply the configuration, but when it comes for the next 90-minute cycle, go ahead and apply the configuration. I can configure the retry options so that my machines will not miss any configuration. Question 11, my user has deleted the created desktop shortcut. Should I redeploy the configuration? It goes back to the same type of configuration that you deploy, similar to that of the configuration that we had. Even a display configuration that I deployed to a specific user, I can say apply this configuration at every logon. So even if I if they delete a shortcut or delete any other configuration, it will try to apply it. Let me show you the shortcut configuration which is in question. I can deploy it and apply it at every logon. Well, we have completed the configurations for today, and thank you very much for joining and taking your valuable time and joining and listening to my training session. I hope this was helpful for you, and the chat with my expert team, they would have answered you better. Please do rate us on a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 being the best. This will help us for the future trainings as well. And please do spread a word about the Desktop Central training, which will benefit the new users as well as the others who would like to be a part of the training. And the next training schedule will be regarding integrating with the Service Desk Plus, which is another ManageEngine product. It is a ticketing tool, and you can see how you can integrate both the tools together and work. So it will be an interesting integration training. Please do join us on the next training schedule, which is on 9th May. And thank you very much. You all have a wonderful week ahead. Bye-bye.